from Roman Kizantsev, our head of technical, and it will be on Alpha.
One, two, three. Will give us a minute to switch the slides. That's backward. This one. Hello again. My name is Roman. I am in charge of the technical unit in our company, and I come from Riga, Europe, a bit further that way. And our discussion today will be around the tool. As you can see, it will be an interactive session. And actually, when we started consultancy, we discovered that there are gaps and there are no tools on the market that will satisfy the needs of our clients and that. And for us, as a consultants, tool
partner is not sanctioned or a politically exposed person. So all these process also comes in at the same time while you are determining whether to do business with the partner or what level of risk to take.
So if a partner suddenly becomes sanctioned, then do you have a process to actually stop people from writing that business?
Yes. Yes, we do.
May I add something here, please?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, just from our own institution, okay, SICS Re. Now we have two applications. One is the offer analyzer and the word check definitive. Okay. But the challenge is that these two applications used for sanction screening, okay, and for risk intelligence, they are not actually integrated with the SICS and T.
Yeah.
So that means they are standalone. That means the individual in charge of the sanction screening and gathering risk intelligence had to pass that information to the underwriter for a decision to be made. But for a synchronous system, it doesn't exist. That's
Right.
part of our challenge.
Yeah, thank you for that. And actually, what we are presenting here is that we have done this integrations already for a couple of clients where we are bringing into SICS this information from this asynchronous system, or let's say partner rating checks that sometimes is important, same as sanction checks. So SICS is capable of, let's say, restricting if your rule is violated, then it will not allow to write this. So we can bring it into SICS, and then for a person, it's just one screen where you can see. You want to say something?
No, I don't want to say. You asked a question whether, we are an insurance company, but we have a tools that come with the software we are using. We can define all our underwriting rules. We can define the flows. We can define where it's going to go, or approve or disapprove, or there or there. So that's what.
Thank you. So other integration that we have done is actually the peer review, where in some cases it requires other underwriters to give their approval. And for that, we also had a system in place where actually it automatically sends it to the inbox of respective person and is awaiting for his or her approval. So another system that actually also contributes to underwriting guidelines is exposure control and portfolio analysis. And I will show you how it looks in real life. And going forward, also for some of the systems, I will show some screens so you have a kind of understanding where it's heading. But for some of them, we will not have it just for the sake of time. Can you please push the next one? Right. So this is our home developed system called RAS, Reinsurance as a Service, where you can see a dashboard and you can check, for instance, choose a time period for which you want to see the stats. And I think it speaks for itself. Any questions on this one? Yeah, go on. Yes. What we are showing again was mentioned. It's experience based. So we had a request. It is a response. Yeah, we can do something similar for you indeed. But actually, analytics is a key everywhere. So this, let's say, is a main driver for decision making. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other point to make here is what really drives the way that we even think before we develop a tool. We start with how can we make this configurable? We don't just try and build someone's asked us to do X, Y, and Z, so we just build the code that is X, Y, and Z. We think, well, other people might have similar things that could go from
J, X and whatever, have a range of letters. So we try and make it always configurable. So this tool is as an architecture that would allow us to say, oh, well, let's just consume a different data set and define the dimensions that you want to report. It's not just fixed to one set of things. And all our tools are designed this way to make them as flexible as possible.
Yeah, that's a good point, because this is designed for the system, the reinsurance system called SICS. So if you have SICS, we can automatically plugs into SICS and you can see all your exposure and your data. However, it's configured so you can take input from multiple systems. Out of the box, SICS is quite simple. We can plug into SICS without thinking. But for insurance, we would need to actually figure out your data and connect them together.
And so similarly with the GL that we were talking about earlier, we didn't just build a bespoke solution that's plugged into someone's Sun. We built an architecture that sort of says, well, okay, you can add a module that will plug into some different ledger system or whatever, so that, if you have Sun, it's an easier deployment because we already did Sun. But if you have a different ledger system that we haven't done yet, you're only paying for the little plug-in to link to the different system, so yeah, thanks.
Okay, what I'm not seeing on your dashboard is the remittance information. I'm not seeing how much is processed, the remittance. I can see the premium. I think that should be gross premium.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So
And,
this dashboard is configurable in terms of what you want to see.
all
So
right.
it plugs in, it takes all your contract information inward and outwards, all your accounting information, not only all your claim information, and it shows exposure. You can actually configure what you see within this. This is entirely up to how, this is just one example of what we're showing for this particular instance.
Okay, thank you. So next item in the list is actually retrocession. For this, we also have tool developed that links to SICS. Yeah. No, it's not gonna get for some reason. So SICS has basic functionality how to link inwards contracts to outwards contracts, but actually it's very basic. That's why we designed a system that makes it more efficiently, and there you can filter out and see the outward deals that are not linked to the inward ones and run the orders. And then once you link it in our front end, we send all this information to SICS. So SICS will reflect that. We just do it in more efficient way. In other words, just to save time of people and get a better picture of the pattern. Yes, here it goes. So you can see how it looks. Thank you, operator. Any question on the retro part?
I still don't understand what you mean by retrocession control. You want to explain it? I don't understand what you mean by retrocession.
Yeah, it's a reinsurance kind of specific thing.
Sorry, just to go back to what you said earlier about, what is being presented. Now, I think the area of direct insurance should be looked into. If you have that side by side with the one you developed for reinsurance, to me, I think to do one or two things, like he pointed out the other time, when he was asking Craig about the time, for you to get this done. If you have this in place, it will shorten the time that you use, to get it done for an insurance company. And it will be possible for us here that are from the direct insurance company to critique it and see how you can develop it. Like my colleague guys now, what about retrocession? What is retrocession? And in place of retrocession is where for direct company, you have the FAC aspect, which goes along with it. So if you have the two, then we'll be able to say, yes, for the direct insurance company, self-retrocession will have FAC reward. And this is the way you go about it. So it makes it easier for you and for us, and to speak on what is being presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Let's move on. So now we've covered the submission part, but here, I guess, it is more about the manual end. But actually, what also we have in place is our currently flagship product called Alpha. And what it does, I will show you in the next slide, hopefully. Yeah, that's not Reddit, that's something else. So can you press the next button and doing that? This is just to help you to remember what we are showing. So repetition is a mother of learning. Oh, you can start with other part, but again, because that's safer. Next, please. Again. And again. Okay, here it goes. So again, this is our flagship product, and idea is the following. We receive contracts in PDF. This is a reinsurance example, and this is PNC as far as I can see. So the goal here is to get this contract entered in your submission system. So on the right side, you see the pages of the contract as they are. Then in the middle side, you see the current page that we're looking at. And on the left side, you see the parsed value. So this is the AI-based. Can you switch back, please? This is artificial intelligence-based solution, meaning that system learns as we go forward. And what it does learn is actually how to extract the data from the PDF. Because goal here is just to be able to get structured data out of unstructured one. It distinguishes between scanned PDFs and non-scanned PDFs because these are completely different things. If PDF is scanned, we don't need to run the OCR on top of it, optical character recognition, but we can actually get use of the structure embedded. If it is scanned, then we need to try to understand what are the letters there, how they are built together as a sentences, blocks, and so on. So it's quite a sophisticated system. And we are pretty successful with that. So we have a number of clients who already went for it and it works well. But again, we have a PDF on the right side. We have built extracted. We go through the extraction, we check. You see green boxes, meaning that system is confident about the extraction quality. If it's not green, it might be not that sure, and then maybe you need to adjust. And then you hit create button, and it lands into SICS in this case. It massively reduces the time that you need to spend in order to take this PDF and key in all the data into SICS. So one is a time gain, two is actually less errors because system this data entry can be repeated by the machine. It does the same quality, while we as human we do mistakes. And the price for this mistake sometimes is quite big if they're discovered later in the process. Yes, please. Well,
sorry, let me take this one. So we don't care about the format. Essentially, the AI is trained on contracts, period. And you can feed it any contract and it will extract the information that you want and it can push it into any system that you want.
But it requires a bit of training. Yeah, because machine needs to go through the cycles where we actually, yeah. Then next point is that on top of this solution, you can build a workflow. Can you please press next?
Hello, Roman.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to ask, is there a restriction in terms of the file format?
So currently we were dealing with PDFs, both structured and unstructured, then Excel spreadsheets we were reading and Word doc. So far, these are the types that we support.
Okay.
Do you have any other type in mind that you are considering?
Not really.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Please.
Yes, the other type is of course a text file text document, and in a text document, it's possible for the text not to align.
Well,
This would be very much supported as well already, yes.
it would be supported, but so far we didn't come across such a scenario. So if it's needed, we can adjust, but yeah, usually these are the types I named, but still, yeah. So workflow, as you can see here, it's a task management system. So what we have configured for some of the use cases is not for contract processing, but for claims processing, there where we are watching the inbox, where all the claims are coming. So a company are having one shared inbox where the claims are coming. Then each claim, each email creates a separate task that later can be assigned on a person. And this is the system to track execution and to control that nothing is lost. And so when the person is logging into the portal, he can see what tasks are currently assigned and can process them. So again, this is just to demonstrate that what we have can be part of the bigger workflow. And we support that with our tasks.
Again, if you've used a software development tool like Jira or something like this, it's kind of similar, but for operational tasks. And again, we build it kind of configurable. So there's statuses and approval gates and this kind of thing that can be configured to model out the workflow that you want for different use cases.
Okay, let's go into the next block, which is called underwriting and pricing. Here, story is mainly about the front end. So if we are talking about SICS, we know that SICS screens are sometimes complicated for some people, and let's say for some lines of business that you have, maybe you would like to have dedicated screen. And we had clients who actually requested that, and that's why here you can see front end for data capture. So we have also a tool that can help you to create screens quicker. And what we're good at is actually, since we know SICS structure well, then we can quickly build screen and feed data into SICS. So this is what we're good at, and it's pretty popular. Then, apart from the regular, let's say, data capture, what we've done was also the front end for the pricing model. So question to you, how do you guys in reinsurance you do pricing nowadays? Do you have a dedicated tools for that? Or do you do it in Excel spreadsheets? So how do you currently solve that?
Well, for continental, the actual application or software that we have is also used for the pricing, but then it's not perfect, you see.
Right. Okay, thank you. So what we have done in the past is that we created some screens, for instance, for cat-related pricing, where we help to attach databases to external risk management applications like AR, RMS, Touchstone, and for non-cat ones, we have created some screens where they have most models embedded, and you can kind of get your numbers from that system alone.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Please.
What is CATS stroke? Non-CATS.
Catastrophe, non-catastrophe.
Catastrophe. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry for.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next category is initial contract entry. Here idea is the following, that before, so the contract data is actually needed in many systems. If probably you don't have only single submission system, but you might have as mentioned pricing systems or reporting systems, and there same data is needed. So idea was that we came up with screens where you enter the basic contract data once, and then it flows from there to all the other systems. Because here the key is for data to be consistent. So best is for it to be entered once and then distributed down the stream to other platforms. So that's why we have the ICE here. And then, of course, for facultative businesses, sometimes dedicated front ends are required. It just helps processing easier for people who are dealing with them. But again, that depends on your book because this is quite specific to every company. Any questions here on the screen? No. Let's go on. Okay, so here with policy admin, the story is the following. If again we talk about SICS, if we talk about SICS, then the more integrations you put around it and the custom screen, the more efficient will be the work of the people working with the system, and actually the less time they should spend on SICS. In some cases, it helps even to reduce the number of licenses, because not in every case the person needs a license. Licenses we know is expensive. So by, let's say, smart investing into integration and automation, you can achieve cost saving in many cases. And sometimes it is a goal of let's move on. So now let's look at accounting and claims as a process next. So for one of the most popular solutions that we implement is actually integration with the bank, because that's inevitable with all of us. And for receipts and payments, we have an integration that is done both ways. As you can see on the picture, now you will see a screenshot. So here is the UI, how it looks. And what we do, we connect to the bank, we export the instances that are created in your line of business system called SICS, and then we read all the transactions that are happened during this time frame for the incoming call. And then this exchange can be scheduled at the website. And the complexity here is more about interaction with your particular bank, because what we've learned that actually the APIs and processes are a bit differs from one bank to another. Do you guys have such integration already in place, or do you manually key in this information in online banking?
It's manual.
So I would recommend to go for a similar solution with us or elsewhere, because it's a huge time set. So think about that. And on top of time, it actually saves on the manual errors again, because sometimes people do mistakes and
sorry, I think Swiss Re has a full integration with banking and their application, because currently on their website, you can actually make your payment and have it credited to their bank, from your bank to their bank, and have the pairing also done.
Yeah.
So we'd love to have such model.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's good is if you're a SICS client, then we have a suite of products that use the same architecture. They're like modular, and this is one of them. And it's quite, it's just again configuration. Which bank do you use? We have to adapt it to match how your bank delivers. What APIs or mailboxes, and just configure a module for your bank, and then it's kind of plug and play. And it's configurable within the tool as to how you map it, and it can read the statements incoming, parse them all, create all remittances in SICS, and then also pick up outgoing remittances in SICS and create and send the outgoing payments to the bank, and then tie them up when the bank confirms they've paid them, and then pair and complete the process in SICS. So it's a real end-to-end solution, which if you've done that, that's quite some manual work to really manage those whole payment processes, and it's now just gone. And we'll be hearing from one of our recent clients, Echo Re, as well this afternoon after lunch, and this was the implementation that we recently did for them. And he's not the only client we've done this for.
Right. So technical accounting bordereaux process. For this, we have also alpha screen. So let's look at that. The story here is the following. You receive the bordereaux. Let's say on bordereaux, and you receive it as media, right side. So similar screen that we had for contract, where you have here the here is the PDF. Then the middle it's zoomed in, and actually on the left side, what you can see, I especially made a screenshot on the list of the entry code that you see we're mapping to the values here, and the highlighted number is left. So what system does, it dynamically reads all the entry code with the numbers and then imports it to the line of business application.
And again, as earlier, you're asking about, that alpha, it's not template based. It doesn't care. It's not kind of, oh, it's an Aon one. It's just, it's driven by what you want. It's looking for the data. It doesn't really care how it's structured. It's trying to find and say, oh, if it's seen written premium, that's what I'm after. It doesn't matter where in the document it is or how it's structured. It's finding the data. It's being driven from the data you want to recover from the document. So again, highly configurable. That basically it's driven by your system's needs. In this case, SICS, but it could be any line of business system. We write a plugin for that system, and then it's about defining what data does that system want, and then that drives what the AI model it will learn to extract from the documents and map it across and then integrate.
Simon, about SICS entry, I know that a lot of the entry codes are already predefined and universal, but then there are some entry codes that are also customized by with the users. So is Alpha able to identify such cases?
Well, exactly. In fact, for a lot of use, many entry codes. I mean, there is a set that are system defaults, but many users customize the entry codes quite significantly. So it's part of that configuration. Everyone sets their SICS up, so there's quite a range of the way you can configure SICS. So part of what we do when we deploy any of our tools is just understand how your SICS is configured and just tweak to make sure that we understand your particular SICS and it's matching. But yeah, it can cope with any customization there.
And on top of that, we've learned that also every broker has its own naming for the entry code, and that's why we have a translation tables coded in, so system understands that if it's from Aon, then probably we should expect that names was entry code here. And if it's a different broker, say Carp or Willis, then different naming should be found. Any more questions here? Okay, let's go on. So GL transfer. I'm sorry, for GL transfer, actually installments and adjustments process. Question, how do you do this now? Because we have also add-on for SICS that helps with that. So how do you manage this currently?
Yeah, within SICS itself,
of course,
it has the GL transfer module. So we have configured it and scheduled it to run at a particular time every day. So we get an alert once it starts fully run. A PDF file is sent showing the number of records that we have successfully moved to the GL. Then it also produces 2 Excel files. One is for the remittance, the other is for the technical worksheet. And that is the farthest it can go. So we now have written scripts to pick those files and transfer them to the server that is hosting the accounting software, and every other thing about conversion and validation and then upload to the server is done in the server.
Yeah, I mean, Roman had sort of skipped back there to actually ask about installments and adjustments in SICS, which obviously is just a standard SICS process, but particularly adjustments, making your on non-prop treaties, your adjustments from brokers is quite, depends on the volume of contracts you have, but it's quite a mouse-heavy, labor-intensive process just to book one adjustment. And so we have a small, again, in the same architecture of this bank remittance thing, an app that makes doing batching of adjustments and controlling adjustments and installments much quicker than doing it in SICS. But I think it's just something to worry about later. But the GL, is to come back to this, is another module in a similar architecture, what we call able forms. And it just controls and manages that whole process of running the 6 jobs and controlling the mappings between, so it's configurable, so it's not hard coded in scripts. The users have screens, but they can map from 6 to the general ledger system. And if a new chart of account code comes in or something changes in your 6 config, you can just come in here and update the mappings, and the whole process is controlled. And then it sends it to the APIs or however the target GL deals, perhaps the holding staging tables or whatever the validations. And then it has a reconciliation process built in as well to then check the GL versus 6 and make sure it stays aligned. And so it just really controls and manages that whole process of taking data from 6 and pushing it to your GL.
Yeah, but about the mapping, I see it's a great concern, especially for me, because even as SICS has a large volume of entry codes, most of the entry codes at the initial stage is not used. Then suddenly a user picks one of the entry code, everything you've mapped just goes haywire. The output, we have errors, and if you don't check before moving it to your financial application, you move rubbish. So that is Alpha able to address such without me coming to check?
Well, I think we have it will certainly alert you in a nicer way. Does your GL have APIs currently?
I think you use Sun, no?
Yeah, we use Sage X3. Sage X3 has APIs that should allow integration with 6.
Right. So what this tool does is, out of the box, we can actually interface directly. You can schedule like you do now. It will format the files, the GLT for the technical, GLR for remittance, GLP for pairing, and it'll put into the format that your GL expects, and validates that actually the GL chart of accounts matches the entry code. And if it has an error, it can send you an email to say, actually, you have a mapping missing. And you simply go to a mapping table here, one of those tables, to say entry code XYZ needs to be mapped to 1, 2, 3 in the chart of accounts. And then it will then rerun it again. And once it's good, it will then push it directly into your GL without you having to actually export files, move into a server. It actually happens automatically from here. So no, it doesn't kind of fix it for you. You still have to fix it, but it's a much more smooth process. It understands the error, it gives you a place to correct it, and then it reruns it again, then uploads it into the system for you.
That's more like what is happening currently.
No, but not really, because what you're doing currently is you're having to rerun it, export the file to a text file, move it to the server, and then upload it again. I mean,
I'm talking about the first stage, the phase 1, which is running the GL transfer, in running the GL transfer, there is a comparison with your mapping. So in that first stage, once you have a mismatch between the mapping and what you have in your GL, the output will have errors. Now, when the output has errors, you go back to the mapping, correct the mapping files, and then do a rerun to get a clean output. So that first part is what I'm actually interested in hearing from you, that once there is an error, the application is able to read where the error is and update the mapping file without
that's a difficult ask. You know why? Because how would it know which chart of account code to map it to, for example? It's very difficult to determine what's the current. I don't think it's right for a machine to say, okay, this is written premium, and I'm going to map it to chart of account 110 premium written. It's I think that's more of a human decision than an automated decision.
There should be a smarter way of doing this.
I think it's hard. I mean,
We can teach the
general-
machine. We can teach the machine.
you can teach it, but it's still very difficult to validate that. It's not like an underwriting contract where the terms are kind of standard. You have so many entry codes in SICS, and a user just decides, you know what, I'm going to use IBN ER.
Mm.
How does the machine then think, okay, what do I map it? In Sun, it can see that there are about 7 IBNR codes. It's very difficult for it to determine which one to use.
And the other thing in general is that these things should be fairly stable. You know, you don't have users just, I'm going to create a few new entry codes this week, and then next week I'll create a couple more. These things are generally fairly stable, and there's a process for, like, we're going to introduce a new entry code in SICS. You don't do this lightly. And then you have a process and you think, oh, we need to update our mappings for the GL if we're going to do that. You don't, you know, it shouldn't be happening often if you're creating a lot of entry codes regular.
It doesn't happen often, but then
So
once in a blue moon, you get a user that, well, probably should have typed premium and should have picked premium. But then premium installment comes first before premium. Original premium comes first before the actual premium, and the user just takes original premium, and that original premium should be for the retro part and not for the inward.
So you mean more that user error has meant they've picked the wrong code for a booking, not that you've created new ones, but users are just making mistakes. The system should be able to see and work out that they have made mistakes. Again, that's a tough ask, because SICS allows you to create a worksheet and choose the entry code. What system can kind of go, no, they shouldn't have chosen that one. They should have chosen a different one. I mean, it's very hard to ask that one, because, you know, how could the system know, oh, the user really intended to book that to a different code? Well, because who could say? Anyway, let's move on, because everyone will never forget lunch.
I wanted to conclude this with the following. If this is your biggest issue, then you have achieved a lot in terms of automation in your company, because I think there are far more areas that require attention than this, given where you are. Okay.
Yes, just a minute. Prior to us closing, I just want to check. I think Boniface was trying to clarify what level the quality control basically works at. I know TPGL reconciliations, for the most part, sometimes it happens within the account level for the most part. So do you guys have like a quality control within the chat field level? Say, for example, somebody wrongfully chose a wrong entry code, but within those lines, you can tell either to say that it should be a negative account entry, but then it happens to be a positive. Your quality control go down to that detail when you're doing the TPG reconciliation. Because if you have that reconciliation within the chat field level, say within separate other notes, not only within the account level notes, to say, or say the number of records which we have transferred from 6 to so on is accurate 1. The account balances which we are transferring from 6 to so on is accurate 2. The mapping within the file accurate 3. But do we have other quality control within this database which we have to say certain chat fields are in line?
I think probably should we just take into breakout sessions and walk you through and talk about the issue. I mean, it does have quite sophisticated reconciliation. It could build in. I mean, SICS allows you to have minus entry codes. You know, you can have premium, you have return premium. So again, hard to just go that, oh, if it's negative, that's always wrong, because it's not necessarily. But you could build in rules for certain codes that it would flag if the sign was different or something, perhaps. But it has quite a range of quite tight reconciliation features, and you know, we probably take it offline and walk you through it if you're interested. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So we've looked at things in the accounting process, and next process in life cycle 3D management is actually reserve and estimation management, or multi-gap configuration and execution. So probably I will not go into details here. I think, Joanna, you are touching on this question, right? Yeah. Okay. Good. But if you have some questions, welcome. let's move on. So we have looked at the processes and tools, but that's not all. What else we have actually is data migration. So what we do a lot, and we've done it many times, and I think every day we have some data migration project ongoing. And for this, we also have created a set of tools that supports that. We are not, these tools are actually more for us than for you, just to make our work efficient. And let's go and see how it goes. So this is so-called MTK tool, Migration Toolkit. So this is a tool that helps to map and process the data that we receive at an incoming site at that target structure expect us to have. So it allows for many transformations to be done. So some logic embedded there, mapping tables, structure. So it is quite a sophisticated tool. And the goal is to really understand what is the mapping and generate files out of it that help to process the data. And once this process is done, then comes the next tool, actually, that we call a reconciliation. What is it? It is, we take two data sets, we compare them, and we generate a structure in Excel that can be even generated on a scheduled basis, say once a day, where you can see per your data item table that shows you the mismatches between the migrated elements. This helps a lot throughout the process, because the key question always is, where do we stand? What is currently migrating, what is not? And having a good overview of this process is very crucial in terms of understanding how far are we, what is to the left. So this is the tool that helps us to answer that. And as you see below, in this Excel spreadsheet, you have every sheet per category, like underwriting, programs to see, particular case, client will dealing with programs, and it will be other things like accounting or claims. So we have the tool set to support migration. And
just to jump, sorry, Roman.
For PNC and life.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, just to jump in there. So that is, we use that initially developed it for migration. So we and as well as the tools, the success of our migration is around the methodology that we use. We use these tools with a very tight set agile methodology with mass load cycles and iterations that ensure success, which we've demonstrated many times. But the reconciliation engine behind this is also useful for just reconciling any two systems. We can plug in any source to any target, and it's automated and runs itself to schedule, and can either generate reports like this that are emailed out or whatever, but we also have a portal, and you can interrogate, every day the data be refreshed. So if you have a system integration or two systems where you expect common data to be there and users are entering it, you have a way to control and make sure that all the data is aligned across two different systems. So it doesn't have to be just a migration project. We have quite a good approach to reconciliation, dynamically and live across multiple systems.
So Boniface, you talked about specifically a data warehouse and what this does. Actually, you can imagine you want to transfer the data every evening, for example, to your data warehouse. How do you know that all the data in the SICS account is in your data warehouse? With this engine, it runs right after you transfer the data. It can tell you everything you've transferred from SICS to data warehouse is there. It gives you an actual reconciliation between multiple systems, and you can schedule it to run whenever you want after your data is transferred from one source to another source.
And we often use it with integrations where manual users may still have the ability to go into the system and change one system or another. So there's some automated integration where, okay, after it's tested, you'd expect the data to be the same, but then your user may go into one system or the other and change something and not update the other system. And this is just a way of picking up a field by field level. Is every value and every field aligned for, across these systems?
I understand that one of the principles of data warehousing is pattern. So perhaps the pattern needs to match. But does that mean you do data warehousing too?
Yeah, we do. That's one of our bread and butter as well.
Yeah, it's always good to have all the options in one shop. It makes the cost lower.
I think we can have 2 or 3 shots after the event. Okay, let's move on. So data migration that spans across all the areas we have seen. And now the last one is actually integration model. So this is the backbone of many things you have seen today as part of my presentation. We have our own in-house built integration tool that is like a Lego. You can, having this building blocks, build your own workflow on a low level that takes data from one of the systems and then puts it to another. So it can use APIs on both sides, it can use database, but the idea is the following. When we come and need to integrate the systems together, we don't want to do the coding as such, but rather the configuration. And this tool allows you visually to put this block. It is built on so-called activities where you don't see it that well, but they are here where they connect to the target, to the source, and you put some logic here how you map the data. And later on, if you need to change something, you don't need to call us and say, look, we have changed in this mapping, come and give us a new deployment of the software. But one can go in, change it visually, save it, and then we have also process to push it to production because you don't want to change it based on prod. So we stick to SDLC, software development lifecycle, where first we do it on dev, then QA, UAT, prod, to be accepted, tested. So again, idea is that we have a visual tool to connect systems together, and we use it ourselves while, for instance, sending data from alpha into SICS. So alpha, when data is captured, it feeds all the field that needs to be pushed into SICS to this platform called Able, and then Able knows how to go to SICS and using API write this data, create a contract, worksheet. So this is a backbone of many things.
I think probably some of you will have seen, it's been a trend the last couple of years as other vendors, have caught up this whole API connection kind of low code thing is the rage. We developed this years ago, and it's the workhorse, it's the backbone of a lot of what we do, and it's become a main plank of a lot of reinsurers' ecosystem because it's reusable. You can publish multiple workflows here, and it has the logic because it's built in this flowchart way. You can have the workflow make decisions, so you can define one incoming payload. So either it goes and fetches, or you push and call its APIs and give it one payload. The workflow can then interrogate that payload and make decisions and branch off and do different things, different activities, email people, write something to this system, write something to that system. So you can embed very complex logic, in these workflows to allow it to understand what data is coming in and then take decisions and then take actions based on it. So it's a very powerful middleware tool that really becomes the glue between multiple systems. You can do many, many jobs.
Yeah, I mean, again, the business partner integration that we talked about earlier. So if, for example, suddenly a partner becomes sanctioned, if you update it in one system, you don't want to update it in one system, then go to SICS and update it as well. You want it to happen seamlessly. And with this Able tool, once you update it in one system, you can build a workflow to say, update it across all my systems where this partner exists.
But now my question is the mapping tool. That seems similar to SICS mapping environment as well. Now, one of the issues I have with SICS is different versions of SICS tends to either expand existing table or drop some table and then create new tables. It's able to identify those changes and probably automatically update the already defined mapping roles that is existing.
So again, we have a partnership with DXC. And actually, when we developed Able, our first project was with DXC. They gave us a SICS license. They were called CSC at the time. And we developed what's called the SICS activity. So those Lego blocks, can you go back? Those Lego blocks that Roman was talking about. We have one specific Lego block for SICS, one of those boxes on the top. We have one that's just SICS. And whenever they get a new release in SICS, we actually have a new activity that's a SICS specific one. And normally the SICS activities are backward compatible. Yes, you might have a new table or a new column added, but normally the APIs are actually backward compatible. I know with the new release they're talking in a couple of years, it's a very different REST methodology they're going for. But if you look at the old SOAP methodology that they have, it's actually backward compatible. And the old versions are always supported in the new releases of this SICS activity that we have. So just because they've upgraded doesn't mean that actually it will stop working.
Currently, there is a great disconnect between the SICS version 495 and the current version 21.1. There is a great disconnect.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if we had Able, which probably was working properly, perfectly while we were on 495. And now we've gone to 21.1 and we are like, we are swimming in air right now because of the divergence.
Right.
What is Able going to achieve for us?
Edward, take
Go
the
ahead.
question. So first of all, we try not to stick as much to SICS database as to SICS API, because
Okay.
it helps actually to get rid of this issue at all, because DXC is changing database time to time, but they keep API as is because they have this having updated internal. And when we try to create some data into this API, then we secure ourselves that we can first upgrade ourselves to work, and we will not require to invest a lot to support the user.
Yeah. Are you aware that recently one of the API, which is for exchange rate upload, was changed?
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah, so again, we have an upgrade path. So we don't just assume because there's a new version that it works. We always release a new version of our SICS activity. So we go through and we actually check. We have a very clear upgrade process for the SICS activity. DXC say that it's backward compatible. They're very clear about that. They do say that, but it's not always backward compatible. We know that actually, so we have a very rigorous testing, and we have a lead tester whose job it is to actually go through this activity, not just for SICS, because we support a number of applications. So we have to make sure that actually when you have an Able license and you have SICS, that it's actually in line with your upgrade. And I don't know which version we're up to now, 20 point something, but we're already looking at.
You're on 21.3 currently.
Yeah.
21.3.
And we're working with APIs on 21.2 actually currently, and with one client, and they're going to 21.3. They're rolling it out very soon. And we've supported clients from like before, 4.5 through, and they're still. And if there's been, there has been changes, even though they say it's backward compatible, but because it's on the APIs, as Roman was saying, and not the database. It's not a massive piece of work. When the new release comes out, we just test. We have automated suites and testers that just run our workflows and make sure they still work. And if they don't, we investigate and understand and just update them and roll them through. And this is why we have a license model, so that we don't leave you. We don't just sell you something and walk away and, oh, it's broken, tough luck. It's